After being deliberately excluded from my sister's wedding, I decided to take a peaceful vacation instead. But when the entire event unexpectedly collapsed, my panicked family suddenly began desperately trying to contact me. You ever have that one moment that completely breaks something inside you, like a quiet snap you can't unhear? For me, it started with a text message. Just a few lines. No emotion, no apology, no warmth. It was short, polite even, but the meaning behind it hit me harder than any argument ever could. My sister was getting married, and I wasn't invited. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of mix-up. Maybe she sent the wrong text. Maybe my invitation got lost in the mail. I tried to convince myself there had to be a reason, some misunderstanding. Because no matter how complicated our relationship had been, she was still my sister. And I'd always been there for her. I was the one who stayed up comforting her when she cried over failed relationships, the one who helped her plan birthday surprises for her friends, the one who never said no when she needed help. And now, when it came to her wedding, the biggest moment of her life, she couldn't even bother to include me. I stared at that text over and over again, reading between every word, hoping I'd miss something. But it was clear. I wasn't wanted. The air around me felt heavy, my chest tight, my throat dry. I didn't cry. I just sat there, numb, like my emotions had all frozen in place. Anger flickered for a moment, but it wasn't the explosive kind. It was the quiet, sinking kind that comes with betrayal. The kind that makes you question if you ever really mattered at all. It wasn't just about a wedding. It was about being erased from something I should have been part of. And that realization, that hollow, painful truth, was the moment something in me finally broke. At first, I tried to laugh it off, convincing myself there had to be some mistake. Maybe the invitations hadn't been sent yet, or maybe my sister was planning some kind of surprise. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Still, I called my mom, hoping she'd say something that made it all make sense. When she picked up, her voice was calm, too calm, like she'd been waiting for this call. I asked her why I hadn't been invited, my voice shaking though I tried to sound casual. There was this pause, long enough to sting, and then she sighed softly and said, "Oh, sweetheart, it's just a wedding. Don't overreact." Just a wedding. The words hit harder than she could imagine. My own mother was treating it like it was nothing, as if being left out of one of the biggest family events of my sister's life was no big deal. I could hear laughter in the background, distant voices, maybe my sister's, maybe other relatives already there helping her prepare. And in that moment, I felt like an outsider in my own family. I asked again, quieter this time, "So I'm really not invited?" She hesitated, then muttered something about limited space and trying to keep things small. My stomach turned. I'd seen the social media posts. There were over 100 guests attending. So no, it wasn't about space, it was about me. She tried to change the subject, talking about how happy my sister was, how beautiful the dress looked. I barely heard her. My ears were ringing, my hands cold. I wanted to scream, to ask her how she could just go along with this. But I didn't. I stayed quiet, swallowed the hurt, and realized right then that I wasn't part of their picture anymore. I felt something twist deep inside my chest, that kind of slow, sick feeling that spreads when you realize you've been lied to right to your face. My mom's excuses about the small guest list played on repeat in my head, each word sounding more hollow than the last. I opened my phone and scrolled through Instagram, and there it was, my sister's bridal shower photos. 150 people. Friends, co-workers, distant cousins I hadn't seen in years, even neighbors who barely knew her. Everyone was there, smiling, drinking champagne, celebrating. Everyone except me. My throat burned as I stared at the pictures, each one a reminder that I wasn't wanted. I wasn't forgotten by accident. I was deliberately left out. And what made it worse was that no one said anything. Not a single family member called to ask why I wasn't coming. No friend reached out to say, "Hey, are you okay?" It was like I'd been erased. Like I'd never existed at all. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, that it was just a wedding, that maybe it was better to stay away from the drama. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about that. It was about what it meant. It meant I wasn't family enough to stand beside my sister, to be part of her joy. And that hurt in a way I can't even describe. I sat there for hours, scrolling, staring, letting every smiling photo stab a little deeper. The captions were full of family love and couldn't do it without my people. And all I could think was, guess I'm not one of her people anymore. That realization didn't just hurt, it hollowed me out. And in that emptiness, something inside me quietly changed forever. I'd always been the dependable one, the one everyone turned to when things went wrong, the one who kept calm while everyone else fell apart. When my sister's world shattered, I was always there, patching the pieces back together, even when it cost me my own peace. I helped her through breakups, job drama, fights with our parents, everything. I was the shoulder she cried on, the voice that told her she'd be okay. I didn't do it for thanks, I did it because she was my sister, and that's what family meant to me. So when she left me out of a wedding, it wasn't just betrayal, it was like she'd taken every memory, every late-night talk, every moment of trust, and thrown it in my face. I kept replaying the past, all those times I showed up for her when no one else did, wondering if it had meant anything to her at all. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I had been useful, not loved. Convenient, not valued. She wanted me around when she needed fixing, but not when she wanted celebrating. That truth hit me hard, and something in me just snapped. I realized I'd spent my whole life trying to be the glue holding everyone together, but no one ever noticed the crack spreading inside me. I was exhausted, tired of being the peacemaker, the problem solver, the one expected to forgive everything. And as that thought settled, I made a quiet promise to myself. I wasn't going to chase people who didn't want me there. I wasn't going to beg for a place at a table I helped build. For the first time in my life, I decided to stop showing up for people who never showed up for me. That night, after hours of staring at the ceiling, I finally accepted that there was nothing left to fix. My family had made their choice, and I wasn't part of it. The realization stung, but beneath the ache was this strange, growing calm, like my heart had finally stopped fighting for a place it didn't belong. So instead of wasting another tear, I opened my laptop. The brightness of the screen lit up the dark room as I scrolled through vacation deals, my fingers trembling at first, then steadying with every click. I didn't know where I wanted to go, just that I needed to be asterisk anywhere but here star. Then I saw it, a small luxury resort by the Caribbean, white sand beaches, turquoise water, quiet villas surrounded by palm trees. It looked like peace in picture form. Without overthinking it, I booked it. A one-way ticket, ocean view suite, first-class seat. I'd always told myself I didn't have time, didn't have the money, didn't have the right reason. But this time, I didn't need an excuse. I needed escape. It wasn't about running away. It was about finally choosing myself over the people who had never chosen me. As I hit confirm, I felt a strange rush, a mix of fear and freedom. I packed that same night, tossing in light clothes, a book I'd been meaning to read, and just enough hope to get me through the next few days. There was something poetic about it. The same week my sister was celebrating her happily ever after, I was walking away from everything that had ever hurt me. When I zipped up my suitcase, I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt free. For the first time in years, I was doing something for myself, and it felt incredible. The morning of my sister's wedding, I wasn't home drowning in self-pity like they probably expected. I was on a plane, seat reclined, watching the clouds roll by beneath me. It felt surreal, like I was finally drifting away from all the noise that had been suffocating me for so long. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving, not my mom, not my friends, not even my coworkers. I wanted this moment to be mine, untouched by guilt or judgment. As the flight attendant handed me a glass of champagne, I looked out the window and smiled. Somewhere down there, my family was probably getting dressed, laughing, fixing makeup, pretending everything was perfect. And for once, I didn't care. I snapped a photo of the sunrise outside my window, the light spilling across the horizon, and posted it with a simple caption, "Guess I got cut from the guest list, but I think I'll survive." It was petty, maybe, but it felt good. It felt honest. The comments started rolling in before we even hit cruising altitude. Friends cheered me on. A few relatives left vague emoji reactions, probably shocked I had the nerve to post it. But I didn't delete it. I leaned back, sipped my drink, and let myself feel every ounce of satisfaction I'd earned. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was free. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one trying to prove my worth or fix someone else's mess. I was just existing, quietly, peacefully, beautifully. As the plane soared higher, I realized something powerful. They hadn't excluded me to hurt me. They had excluded me because they thought I'd always stay quiet. But that version of me was gone, left somewhere far below the clouds I was now flying above. The reaction to that post was instant, faster than I expected. My phone buzzed non-stop, lighting up with notifications as if the universe was finally paying attention to me. Friends commented things like, "Good for you," and "Your piece looks good on you." Some even joked that I'd upgraded from wedding drama to island drama. I laughed reading them, but underneath the humor was something real, a quiet kind of validation I didn't know I needed. For so long, I'd been the one left behind, the one no one thought to check on. But now, everyone saw me. I wasn't invisible anymore. Then my screen lit up with a name I didn't want to see. Mom. The first text came in, "Where are you?" Then another, "You're being petty." And finally, the one that made my chest tighten, "Your sister is hurt." I stared at those messages for a long time, trying to decide whether to care. For years, I'd been taught to feel guilty anytime I chose myself, to put family first no matter how badly they treated me. But not this time. I typed a short reply and then erased it. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Not after the way they made me feel invisible. I set my phone face down on the tray table and looked out the window. The sky was endless, bright, untouchable. That's how I wanted to feel. When the flight landed, I turned my phone back on and saw even more messages. Missed calls, unread voicemails. I didn't answer any of them. Let them wonder. Let them feel a fraction of the confusion and pain they'd made me feel. For once, I wasn't reacting out of hurt. I was choosing peace. And it felt so much better than guilt ever had. When I stepped off the plane, the first thing that hit me was the air. Warm, salty, alive. It smelled like freedom, like something clean and untouched, the opposite of the suffocating tension I'd left behind. A man stood at the arrivals gate holding a sign with my name written in neat black letters. I smiled, walked up, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like someone was actually expecting me. The car was cool and quiet, stocked with chilled water, soft towels, and a faint scent of coconut. As we drove along the coastline, palm trees swayed in the golden light, and the ocean glittered like a living thing. I rolled down the window and let the breeze whip through my hair, feeling the last bits of anger leave my body with every mile. The driver asked if it was my first time visiting. I nodded and said, "First time doing something just for me." He smiled, like he understood exactly what that meant. The resort appeared like a dream, tucked between cliffs and turquoise waves. Bell staff opened my door with a warm welcome, and I realized no one here knew who I was. No labels, no family drama, no history. Just me. My room overlooked the sea, with white curtains flowing in the breeze and the faint sound of waves echoing through the open balcony. I stood there for a moment, letting it all sink in. This was my life now, quiet, peaceful, mine. No one could take this away from me. I didn't have to fight for a seat at anyone's table anymore. I'd built my own. I sat down on the balcony chair, took a deep breath, and smiled to myself. For once, I wasn't an afterthought. I was exactly where I belonged. The resort looked like something out of a dream, every corner touched by sunlight and ease. Palm trees lined stone walkways, swaying in rhythm with the ocean breeze, and somewhere nearby, soft music drifted through the air. At check-in, they handed me a cold towel and a drink that tasted like mango and mint, sweet and sharp at the same time. The staff greeted me with warm smiles, the kind that felt genuine, not forced. I hadn't realized how starved I was for simple kindness until that moment. When they led me to my room, I could hear the waves crashing gently beyond the open corridors, like the sea itself was welcoming me. My suite was breathtaking. White sheets, wooden floors, sunlight spilling across the bed, and a balcony that opened directly to an endless stretch of turquoise water. I stood there, motionless, taking it all in. The world felt quiet for once, peaceful in a way I'd never known before. I poured myself a drink from the minibar, walked out to the balcony, and let the sound of the waves drown out every memory that had hurt me. My phone buzzed with notifications, but I didn't check. Not yet. Instead, I took a photo of the view, the ocean glimmering like glass, the sky soft and golden, and posted it with a caption that made me laugh as I typed it. When one door closes, another opens, preferably to a beach suite with unlimited margaritas. It wasn't just a joke, it was a declaration. For years, I'd been waiting for others to make room for me. Now, I'd made my own space. I leaned back in the chair, close my eyes, and let the sea breeze wash over me. In that moment, I finally felt untouchably, beautifully free. That post hit deeper than I expected. It wasn't just another photo or a casual caption. It was a statement, a quiet middle finger to everyone who had made me feel small. I didn't post it out of spite, not really. I posted it because, for once, I wanted them to see me happy without them. For years, my peace had depended on their approval, their acceptance, their version of love that always came with conditions. But now, I was learning that peace didn't need permission. As the comments rolled in, I felt something shift inside me. Some people laughed, others cheered, and a few messaged privately saying they were proud of me for walking away. It was strange, being seen not as the family doormat but as someone brave enough to choose themselves. I scrolled through my messages, half expecting one from my sister, but there was nothing. Maybe she hadn't seen it yet. Maybe she was too busy living her perfect little fairy tale. Still, deep down, I hoped she did see it, that she felt that sting of recognition when she realized I wasn't sitting around waiting for scraps of affection anymore. I didn't want her to hurt. I just wanted her to understand. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I had been. I was free, untethered, no longer weighed down by trying to fix what was never mine to fix. That night, I sat by the pool, the water glowing blue under the soft lights, and thought about how strange it was that sometimes peace feels almost like grief. You mourn what you lost, even if it was toxic. But beneath the sadness was something new, something strong, steady, and unshakable. I didn't need their validation anymore. For the first time, my happiness belonged only to me. The moment the sun began to dip behind the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of gold and crimson, my phone started to buzz like an alarm. At first, I ignored it. I thought it was just more people reacting to my posts, maybe some distant friends curious about where I had disappeared to. But the vibrations didn't stop. They came faster, stronger, relentless. I frowned, picked it up, and saw a flood of notifications. Missed calls, unread messages, and voice notes from almost everyone in my family. My mom, my cousins, even my sister. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, watching the chaos unfold in tiny flashing icons. Something had happened, that much was clear. I scrolled through the messages, and as I read them, my confusion turned into disbelief, then into something dangerously close to satisfaction. "Call me, it's urgent," my mom wrote. "It's an emergency," said another. "Bro, you won't believe what just happened," Jake texted, and that one made me pause. My thumb hovered over his message as I felt a grin pulling at the corners of my mouth. Maybe it was cruel, but part of me wanted to let them wait. Let them feel that same cold silence they had once handed me so easily. But curiosity eventually won. I opened the texts, and what I saw made me laugh out loud. My sister's wedding, the one I wasn't invited to, had completely fallen apart. The groom had walked out, just left. There was shouting, tears, and total chaos. I leaned back on my lounge chair, the ocean breeze brushing against my skin, and for a fleeting second, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the message that had started it all. Tough cuts. I took a sip of my drink and smiled. Tough luck. I sat there in disbelief, staring at my phone as message after message poured in, each one more desperate than the last. My mom was calling non-stop, my cousins were spamming texts, and then there it was, Emily's name flashing on the screen. The sister who thought I wasn't important enough to be part of her special day was now begging for me to answer. For a few seconds, I just watched it ring, listening to the sound fade away. Then another text appeared. "Please, answer your phone. I need you." The irony was almost poetic. I laughed out loud, earning a few curious looks from people lounging nearby, but I didn't care. I took a deep breath, opened my messages, and typed back the only response that felt right. "Sorry, I'm a little busy enjoying my overreaction. Hope the wedding was fun." Then I hit send, smiled, and block her number. I blocked my mother next. Then Jake, just in case he got caught in the middle trying to guilt-trip me. With one final swipe, I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and tossed it aside on the lounge chair. The bartender walked past, and I raised my empty glass. "Another one, please," I said with a grin. As the fresh cocktail arrived, I leaned back and let the sunset wash over me. The sound of the waves, the warmth of the air, the peace of knowing I didn't owe anyone a damn thing. It was pure freedom. My family could run around trying to patch up their mess. My sister could cry, yell, or blame whoever she wanted. But me. I was exactly where I needed to be. For the first time in years, I wasn't the fixer, the peacemaker, or the afterthought. I was just me, calm, content, and completely untouchable. The next morning, I woke up to the soft crash of waves against the shore and the faint light of dawn spilling across the room. My head felt clear, lighter than I had in months. I stretched, walked out to the balcony, and just stood there for a while, breathing in the salty air. The world felt quiet again. No buzzing phone, no drama, no guilt. Just me and the sea. Then, against my better judgment, I turned my phone back on. Within seconds, it exploded with notifications. Missed calls, voicemails, texts stacked one after another like a digital avalanche. Curiosity got the best of me, and I played one voicemail from Jake. His voice was tense, rushed, almost panicked. "Man, you won't believe this. The wedding's off. The groom bailed, just vanished. Emily's losing it. Mom's hysterical. They've been trying to reach you. Call me back, please." I paused, letting his words sink in. The groom bailed. The fairytale my sister had rubbed in everyone's faces had crashed and burned right before her eyes. I didn't feel joy exactly, but there was a strange, quiet satisfaction curling in my chest. Karma had a way of finding its way home, didn't it? I scrolled through a few more texts. Some were begging for help, others were full of blame. "You should have been here. This is partly your fault. You could have stopped this." That one made me laugh out loud, as if my presence could have stopped someone from walking out of a relationship built on lies. I set my phone down and walked barefoot to the beach. The sand was warm beneath my feet, the ocean humming softly like it was in on the secret. For the first time, I realized peace didn't come from being needed. It came from finally letting go. I spent most of that morning sitting by the water, watching the waves roll in and out, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. There was a strange sense of calm inside me, like the universe had finally balanced its scales. For so long, I had been the one bending over backward, trying to earn love that was never freely given. I used to believe that if I kept showing up, if I stayed patient, kind, and forgiving, one day they would see my worth. But now, as the sea breeze brushed against my face, I realized how exhausting that version of me had been. I had always been the peacemaker, the glue that held everyone together, even when they left me out of the picture. Yet, the moment I stopped chasing their approval, everything started falling apart. For them, not for me. My phone sat beside me on the towel, buzzing every few minutes, but I didn't move to pick it up. I didn't need to. They needed me, not the other way around. A part of me almost pitied my sister. I imagined her in her white dress, makeup running, surrounded by whispers and judgment, trying to figure out how her perfect day had turned into a disaster. But another part of me thought, maybe this was her lesson. Maybe she would finally understand what it feels like to be abandoned, to have something crumble when you thought it was unshakable. I didn't wish her pain, but I couldn't deny the poetic justice in it all. The tide moved closer, washing over my feet, cool and grounding. For once, I didn't feel the urge to fix anything or reach out. I just sat there, breathing deeply, letting the waves carry away the last bits of guilt I'd been holding onto. By the afternoon, the resort was alive with laughter and music, and I found myself sitting at the bar, sipping a cold drink, watching people dance near the pool. Everything around me felt bright and alive, the exact opposite of the chaos happening miles away back home. I couldn't help but think how strange it was that life could split like that, one side burning down while the other bloomed quietly in sunlight. My phone lay on the counter, still on silent, but the notifications never stopped. It buzzed so much that even the bartender raised an eyebrow. I smiled and shrugged, saying, "Family drama." He chuckled and poured me another drink without asking. I like that. Someone who didn't need the details to understand that sometimes silence is the best answer. Between sips, I thought about my sister, about all the time she had treated me like I was invisible. How every family event turned into a performance where she played the star, and I was the forgotten background. Maybe she didn't mean to be cruel, but she always was, carelessly, thoughtlessly. And the worst part was that I let her be. But not anymore. Not this time. The music grew louder, and I felt something inside me loosen, like a knot finally coming undone. I joined a small group of travelers near the pool, people who didn't know my story and didn't care to. We talked, laughed, and danced under the fading sun, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't the sad sibling left out of someone else's happiness. I was the main character in my own story. As night fell and the sky turned deep blue, I raised my glass to the horizon and whispered to myself, here's to peace, to freedom, and to finally being enough. That night, as the stars scattered across the sky like tiny diamonds, I walked along the quiet beach with the sound of the waves whispering in my ears. The air was cool, soft, and filled with the scent of salt and freedom. My phone was still lighting up back in the room, but I left it there on purpose. I didn't want to hear apologies, excuses, or emotional blackmail. I wanted silence, the kind of silence that feels like healing. I let the sand sink beneath my feet, each step grounding me deeper into the moment. For the first time, I wasn't running from anything. I wasn't replaying old arguments or crafting explanations in my head. I was just still. I thought about my family, about how they must be sitting in that broken wedding hall, trying to figure out who to blame, and I wondered if they ever thought about how much they had pushed me away. Maybe now they would finally understand what it felt like to be excluded, to stand outside something that was supposed to include you. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd shut me out, and now they were the ones left in the ruins. I felt a strange mix of sadness and strength. Sadness because, despite everything, I still loved them. Strength because I finally knew love didn't have to mean sacrifice. I could love them from a distance. The waves brushed against my ankles, cool and rhythmic, and I tilted my head back to look at the stars. Somewhere deep inside, I made a promise, to stop letting people decide my worth, to stop begging for a seat at tables that didn't deserve me. The night was quiet, but it felt like the world was finally listening. And for once, I was at peace with the silence. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, golden and gentle, and for the first time in years, I woke up without that familiar heaviness in my chest. I stretched lazily, took a deep breath, and felt something inside me shift, a calmness, a quiet sense of control that I hadn't felt in a long time. I walked to the balcony with a cup of coffee, the steam curling up into the warm air, and looked out over the endless blue horizon. Everything felt distant now, the wedding, the drama, the guilt. It was like watching a storm fade far out at sea after surviving the rain. I scrolled through my phone out of curiosity, not attachment. The news had spread. The wedding disaster was everywhere on family group chats, photos, whispered updates, long threads of blame and speculation. My aunt had written that the groom's family had found out something shady about my sister and backed out at the last minute. Another message said the guests had been left sitting awkwardly for hours before realizing there would be no ceremony. The whole thing sounded like a movie I no longer belonged in. Part of me wanted to laugh, but another part felt something softer, a sense of closure. Maybe this was the universe's way of showing that karma wasn't always cruel, just balanced. I didn't reply to any of the messages. I didn't need to. They'd learn whatever lesson they were meant to without my help. I put the phone down, finished my coffee, and decided to spend the rest of the day exactly how I wanted, renting a boat, sailing into the open water, and letting the sun kiss my face. For once, life didn't feel like something happening to me. It felt like something I was finally choosing for myself. As I stood on the deck of the small boat I had rented, the sea stretched endlessly before me, calm and shimmering under the afternoon sun. The wind whipped through my hair, cool and freeing, carrying with it the faint scent of salt and possibility. I felt weightless, like every burden I had carried for years had finally fallen away into the waves. The engine hummed softly beneath my feet, and I watched the horizon blur into shades of blue and gold. Out there, away from everything and everyone, I realized how small my problems really were compared to the vastness around me. For years, I had let people define my worth, my family, their expectations, their judgments, but now, surrounded by nothing but sky and sea, I understood how powerful it was to just exist on your own terms. I thought about my sister again, about how her life had been built on appearances, control, and validation. Maybe that was why everything collapsed so easily. It had never been real. My life hadn't been perfect either, but at least mine was honest. I had felt pain, rejection, loneliness, but I had also felt growth, and that mattered more than perfection ever could. I leaned against the railing, watching the sunlight dance across the water, and felt tears prick my eyes, not out of sadness, but relief. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even bitter. I was just done. Done carrying guilt for things I didn't cause. Done begging to belong. Done pretending to be smaller to make others comfortable. The sea breeze brushed against my face, cool and kind, like a quiet reminder that sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's rebirth. I smiled to myself, feeling that truth settle deep in my bones. For the first time, I was completely, unapologetically free. That evening, I returned to the resort just as the sun began to set, casting a soft orange glow across the sky. Everything looked peaceful, the pool shimmering under the fading light, the sound of laughter drifting from the bar, the gentle hum of music playing somewhere nearby. But inside me, something felt different now. Lighter. Stronger. Like I had shed an entire version of myself I no longer needed. I walked to the same spot on the beach where I had stood on my first night there and watched the waves roll in, slow and endless. My phone buzzed again, and this time, I decided to look. There were dozens of new messages, apologies, explanations, even pleas. My mother had written, "We should have treated you better." My sister's message was shorter, "I'm sorry. Please come home." I read them both slowly, letting the words sink in, but I didn't feel anger or triumph. Just peace. The old me would have replied immediately, rushing to comfort, to fix, to make things right. But not this time. I simply placed the phone down on the sand beside me and let the tide wash close enough to nearly touch it. I whispered softly to the ocean, "I forgive you all, but I'm not coming back the same." Those words felt heavy and freeing all at once. I sat there until the stars appeared, the sound of the waves matching the rhythm of my heartbeat. I wasn't thinking about revenge or justice anymore. I was thinking about balance, about how sometimes life has to break apart to rebuild something truer. I smiled to myself, picked up the phone, turned it off again, and whispered, "Goodbye." Then I walked away from the shore, barefoot and calm, carrying nothing but peace in my heart. The morning I was supposed to leave the resort, I woke up early and stood on the balcony one last time, watching the sun rise over the horizon. The world felt new, as if it was gently exhaling after a long, painful storm. The sky was painted in soft pinks and golds, and the ocean glimmered like liquid glass beneath it. For the first time in years, I wasn't dreading what came next. I wasn't anxious about facing anyone or proving anything. I had found something far more valuable than approval. I had found myself. I packed my bag slowly, almost reluctantly, as if part of me wanted to stay there forever. Before checking out, I walked down to the beach, barefoot, the cool sand pressing between my toes. The sea breeze was calm that morning, almost like a quiet farewell. I sat for a moment, staring at the horizon, thinking about everything that had happened, the rejection, the heartbreak, the chaos, the freedom that followed. If someone had told me that being excluded from a wedding would lead me to rediscover my strength, I wouldn't have believed them. But life has a way of turning pain into clarity, of showing you who you really are when everything else falls apart. I smiled, whispering softly, "Thank you, not to anyone in particular, but to the world itself, for the lesson, for the peace, for the closure." As I walked back toward the car waiting to take me to the airport, I felt no bitterness, no anger, only gratitude. I had entered this place feeling unwanted and broken, but I was leaving it whole. My story wasn't about revenge or karma anymore. It was about release. And as the sun climbed higher, I realized that sometimes losing everything is the first step to finally becoming free.